If you're like me, you are tired of dealing with dusty, dirty stalls and all the waste that comes from using straw and shavings. I recently came across the idea of using peat moss as a stall bedding and thought I'd check out coco coir as well as an alternative that might be a little bit more environmentally friendly. You can see some of the details here on this chart, 3 being the highest, and the different ratings for the different kinds of bedding that we're normally seeing. And these include coco coir and peat moss. And we're going to explore these differences in cost and maintenance. So the experiment is commencing, and you may notice it's pretty dusty in here. I am raking out all of the shavings from Maggie's stall. So this is Maggie's little about 9.5 foot by 9.5 foot stall. Here's Ellie. Maggie, Ellie, and Dot sleep in here at night for protection from predators. And we're going to try out a new bedding, or at least new to us. This is coconut coir. So in some countries, things like peat is popular for bedding because of the low dust. And I have opted to go with coconut to see how that does. And so this came in an 8-pound brick, and I wet it and have let it kind of loosen up. And I'm going to spread it around in here. I have a couple more bricks to do. It's supposed to be antimicrobial as well as low dust and super absorbent. So one of the really great things about using coconut coir is that it is so much easier to clean as far as the sifting goes. So normally when I'm scooping poop, there's so many shavings that are still good that get trapped on the pitchfork or apple picker, and they just get wasted because you can't really sift them well. But this is fine enough that it falls through much easier, making cleaning a whole lot easier. It's also virtually dust free, so even though it kind of acts like sawdust would when you clean, being so fine, there's virtually no dust. Right now I have a very thin layer in here, but the dust control will improve when I get this re-leveled, and I'm going to put stall mats in here. This old dust that's in here from previously will be covered with stall mats, and then the coconut coir is going to go on top. It's been about a week since I spread out the coconut coir in this area here. It's just kind of like 2 little open bays, and I have not cleaned yet, but you wouldn't know it walking in here because there is virtually no odor. It's been maybe a month since I put it here in Maggie and the goat stall, and again, there is no odor. So the other thing is, standing in here, like, the flies are not here. Even though there's manure in here, my legs are not getting covered in flies. I'm not sure if you can tell, but once I kind of walk out here, you can perhaps see that there are flies here. They're on Margarita's legs right now. So there are flies out here, irritating everybody. But when I walk in here, they're just not really hanging out. So I'm going to clean up real quick. And when I say real quick, I kind of mean that literally. It's so much easier to clean than shavings, and definitely easier to clean than straw. So the downfall is that it does best if it's a little bit wet. So I just have a watering can down here because I don't have a long enough hose. And if I have some dry spots, I just kind of use my watering can and wet the top just a little bit. And that just helps everything stay completely dust free It also has a nice cooling effect, which is great this time of year and during summer. But it brings up yet another downside, and that is, we get snow and freezing temperatures here in Colorado. So this might not be the best solution come winter. Right now, my plan is going to be to keep this as a nice base to keep odors down and then top it with straw. So I will probably have to strip everything out completely after winter and start fresh next spring by stripping everything out and then replenishing all of the cocoa coir. But I think that's okay, and I do think that having this initial base of cocoa coir is really going to help in the winter when sometimes the animals tend to hang out here in the barn and the urine smell gets really, really intense because everybody wants to hang out down here. And the other kind of odd thing that might be considered a downfall is it's actually a little dark, so it does make my barn feel darker. It can also hide manure, so it's very similar in color to some manures, especially if you're feeding hay and your manure is more brown than bright green. But other than that, seriously, this has been a game changer. I did want to mention, since I brought it up, that some farms use peat moss. These are some examples of peat moss. These are 3 cubic feet per bale. This one, I believe, is about $19. This one was about $25. But these are very comparable to the coconut coir. You can see the consistency here, very similar. And it acts very similar in that it absorbs a lot. It's low dust when kept slightly wet, and is a pretty cost-effective way considering how much coconut coir costs. And initial expense would be a bit more than something like shavings, depending on where you live, but the maintenance is much less. I know there's a lot of controversy about using peat moss for anything, but I did just want to mention it since finding out that there are some barns that use this exclusively kind of prompted my search to find a different kind of bedding for my own barn.